And what's up? Welcome in Monday episode of DC Live. He is Chris Clark. I am Wes Mitchell. We are, of course, brought to you by our good friend Clint Hammond of the Mortgage Network. Check out Clint's info at clinthammond.com or just give him a call, 803-771-6933. Clint is the branch manager right here in Columbia at the Columbia Mortgage Network. C. Hammond at mortgagenetwork.com is his email address, as you see right there on the screen. 71597 is his NMLS number. If you're in the market, in fact, I know some friends who have refinanced here recently. You can save some money, or if you're just in the market for a new home, very low interest rates, give Clint a shout. He can walk you through the process, whether you're an experienced investor or if you're a first-time home buyer. I bought my first house with Clint. Very smooth process after hearing horror stories from people dealing with buying a house. Very smooth process. So give Clint a shout. He's a friend of mine. He's a friend of the show, and I promise you he will take great care of you. Chris, dude, we're getting there. I think it's 33 days until kickoff now, which means fall camp opens up on Friday. Well, we'll say preseason camp. We can't call it fall camp because it literally is like 100 degrees outside. Preseason camp on Friday. Players report on Thursday. That's a media day. We had Carolina Cookout on Saturday. I can already tell that y'all, those watching and listening, just the fan base at large, y'all are getting excited because the closer to kickoff we've gotten, Chris, I've watched just on YouTube, I've watched the number of viewers. The average number just steadily gets higher, higher, higher. Now, in the offseason, it was like lower, lower, lower. Now, everybody starts getting a little bit more pumped. Plenty to talk about on today's show, man.
Definitely, man. Recruiting, still in high gear. It just ended, of course, the 1 week open period in this month of July. And so now things are dead in the sense of no campus visits right now, and coaches won't be going. They'll be finally able to go back on the road during the football season. See a lot of coaches out on Friday nights this year. So that'll be a little bit more, of a return to normalcy on that front. But, some recruiting stuff going on, obviously, with the Carolina Cookout. That was busy this weekend. But like you said, big storyline is football camp. It's back. It's maybe not quite as normal as we thought it would be. Wes, it looked like, and you remember when we had Shane Beamer on the show, he seemed to really be plotting a way to try to figure out how to get fans some exposure to the team this year. Exposure is a really bad word to use during this. He was trying to figure out a way to get the fans an opportunity to see the team this year, whether it was at, a fan appreciation day or during camp itself, which I think fans would enjoy that even more, just being able to go and get a look at the team. Not going to happen this year because of, the kind of status of where things are again, I guess, with COVID. So I know everybody was bummed about that. Fans, I'm sure Shane Beamer is bummed about that, probably even the team. But it will start up, and that means the season's getting closer. So looking forward, we will be able to see more than we did this spring, which is exciting for us, Wes. We'll get some lengthier periods during practice. So I'm excited about that. I'm ready to get this thing kind of kicked off as far as practice and being able to see some of the new faces, see how some of these guys have progressed from spring until now.
Yeah, phrasing, Chris. Exposure, that
bad one.
That's rough. All right, y'all. Real quick, I'm gonna try because we swapped places and it's messing with my brain. I'm gonna try to swap us back. There it is. Okay. All right. This is where we normally are, right? I'm here, you're there. Okay, perfect. But yeah, lots of stuff to go into, man. Carolina Cookout, again, a very laid back event. Some food trucks, some hanging by the pool. There was some wiffle ball action, some cornhole. Those seem to be maybe the two primary, maybe the most popular games that I heard about. But a little bit of a scavenger hunt going on, some golf cart tours of campus. But really just a much more laid-back day than your typical recruiting experience. But, there were a couple of things, Chris, that stood out to me. One being the number of guys, and in some cases, young prospects, that South Carolina was getting in for the second, sometimes third time just since June. So the amount of time that they've had around these kids, the amount of time that these kids have had to be on their campus. You look at a Cam Pringle, you look at a Josiah Thompson. There's several guys, Xavier McLeod. Lots of guys that are still pretty early in their recruiting process, and they're getting just that comfort level around your coaches and around your program. Because let's be honest, when South Carolina came in, with kids not being able to be on campus, you're playing catch up for prospects. They've never met your staff. They've never been on your campus in some cases. So you're playing catch up. Well, for the class of 2023 guys, and then in some cases, like we're talking about the class of 2024 guys, to go ahead and establish that early baseline of, hey, man, you should feel welcome on this campus at any time, I thought was massive. Then the other side of this for me, the committed guys, the other end of the spectrum, your rising seniors, your guys that are already locked in. All three of your offensive line commitments are on campus, spending time together. Your future quarterback was on campus, spending time with those guys. And then maybe the most important storyline of all, in my opinion, Chris, Antonio Williams, Dutch Fork High School, makes the short ride over from Irmo, but he had a lot going on Saturday. Had his own practice, had photo day at practice, had sort of a meet the team function for fans of Dutch Fork football. For a kid that doesn't really seem to love recruiting, Chris, I'm going to go ahead and read into the fact that he and his family made it a point to get over to the thing. I know it's a short trip. I know it's not hopping on an airplane, but considering what we know about how low key he is about the recruiting process, that to me is a very, very good move for South Carolina.
Yeah, you're right. Low key doesn't get all into the recruiting process. There have been visits to other places. There may be other visits. We know, Ole Miss obviously gets an official visit later this football season, as will South Carolina. But I think this is a deal Southwest where, the location of South Carolina being right down the road has helped. And it's been something that I think Antonio and his family have embraced. I think it does help South Carolina's cause in this particular situation with the distance. Although Antonio spent time, in his younger years in the state of Mississippi, I think the families here kind of established that helps. That helps South Carolina. And like you said, you're pointing out that the fact that he, wants that FaceTime, he and his family want the FaceTime with the coaching staff. They feel comfortable enough to go and do that on a day where they have a lot going on. And you probably, and there's a good argument to be made, just go home and relax and rest up a little bit. They go and brave kind of the heat. It was a hot day, and they go out there and have some fun at the cookout as well. So I think, again, a positive sign for South Carolina. They've stayed really engaged. It hasn't been a high-pressure situation or a pitch, quote-unquote, from this coaching staff to Antonio Williams, but it has been a deal where there's a really, really high comfort level between the Williams camp and Justin Stepp, Shane Beamer, Eric Kimry, everybody that's been involved there.
Yeah, so we'll see. Obviously, it's not a situation where we're like tracking an upcoming commitment anytime soon for Antonio. But, I think as we know in this stuff, man, time flies because the kid's going to be focused on his senior year now. High school football games. South Carolina is going to be focused on their games, obviously. We were told I think I said late October potentially for a commitment, but he's got 2 official visits set, South Carolina and Ole Miss. That time will be here before we know it. So I think just to finish off the summer, if you really look at it, Chris, he started the summer at South Carolina and he finished the summer at South Carolina. So are there some things that could potentially throw a wrench in this? Would a Clemson offer still mean something? Would an Alabama offer, although I haven't heard them come up near as much lately, but a Clemson offer would still mean something. I think it's fair and safe to say. Georgia, Auburn are still in this a little bit. He did take an unofficial visit to both of those schools. They could get official visits. But I don't know, man. The fact that we keep hearing South Carolina, Ole Miss, And then that's the first 2 official visits. And then the amount of time he has now spent at South Carolina, I start to feel like South Carolina at this time, with the rest of the race to be run, that they're in a solid place, I think, with him. So, all right, dude, let's tell you what, let's finish off with another sort of, I would say, senior that we're tracking, and then let's circle back to some of the young guys. And, I think South Carolina has really, you had some of this in your insider report, man. But James Pierce, this is a kid that we've been tracking for a while now, the last couple of months. He got a summer offer from South Carolina. He is a true edge prospect. I would say is in the line of being a more traditional, like long, lean, pass rush type prospect, not one of these guys that's probably going to grow into an interior player. And in my opinion, and I know in your opinion as well, based on the feedback we've gotten, South Carolina has really put themselves in a good spot with him.
Yeah, he's a really interesting kid because, like you said, more of a true edge guy, 6'5", 6'6", 220, 225 pounds, and room to continue growing, but staying out on the edge. He's got that length. He's athletic enough to where, at the high school level, he's played some receiver. So obviously that shows the type of athleticism that he's got. And South Carolina's been in on him pretty hard. Had him on campus earlier this summer already. Get him back for the cookout, and everything that we've heard points to South Carolina being in really good position. Now, Pierce himself, unless he doesn't talk a lot, hardly at all, but he's someone that, you look at it, even right there. I mean, you can just tell, for those of you watching on the YouTube stream, you look at this guy, just in photos, you watch him on film, the length really, really stands out. Just the way that he's built, his arms are long, he's long-limbed, has quickness off the football. Asked some coaches in the Charlotte area recently about him, and they all kind of used terms like, athlete or raw athlete, high upside kid, lots of potential. They throw around those terms. And so this is someone that I think Mike Peterson, who's done a really good job developing talent at South Carolina at that buck position on the defensive end, edge rushers, he's done a really good job. This is a guy that would bring, a lot of tools to where Mike Peterson could take those and kind of really help develop him into a more complete player. But lots of physical upside and talent here.
And Chris, that I think, me personally, I've been sort of curious to see exactly how do they structure things on this defense in terms of numbers. I think before we'd kind of gotten used to, it was kind of like there was a buck position and there was a defensive end spot, but a lot of the guys that were in that defensive end spot were more along the lines of like your bigger type of guys that set the edge, not your traditional pass rush types, and guys that are more like the kids that would play in like a 3-4 almost. Now in this scheme, everybody that's sort of an outside player on the defensive line is listed as an edge. So you look at South Carolina's current roster, J.J. Nigbare, he's an edge. Jordan Birch, he's an edge. Aaron Sterling, Jordan Strong, they're all listed as edge prospects. So I didn't know necessarily what it was going to look like as far as numbers go at that position. But based on what we're both hearing right now, Chris, it sounds like South Carolina is going to take both a heavy edge class and a heavy interior defensive line class based on the guys they're in on, the guys they have a shot at, and the numbers that I think we can currently project that they will try to take at those positions. So it seems to me, even though the defensive line, and when I say defensive line, I'm including everybody, the interior guys and the edge guys, even though that position is in a good spot with the current roster, it looks to me like they are really eyeing sort of being in a position to revamp that defensive line and restock it for the future, it seems.
Yeah, and the more you look at it and think about it, Wes, this makes sense. And I think one thing to consider in this class is that spots are tight, right? What is it, 7 spots when you count what South Carolina has committed, plus a couple guys that count towards this class from the transfer ranks in Tyrese Ross and Karan Prunty. And then you look around and you go, there are lots of different needs that are still on the board. Maybe a running back, a tight end if it's Oscar Delp. You still got linebacker out there as a need. So they're wide receiver, obviously, where they want to add another guy or two. So there are lots of needs, and there's not a ton of numbers there. But it looks like South Carolina is taking the approach of, hey, figure that out. If you've got some guys that are talented, and when you look at the edge position on the 2022 recruiting board, it's a lot of different types of guys, different body types, different skill sets that can do some different things for you. And so it looks like they've kind of taken the approach of, don't turn down guys that you feel can be impactful players there. And going back to the current roster, that makes sense because you got JJ Enagbare, he's a senior. He's gone after this year. He's going to be potentially a pretty high NFL draft pick. Then you've got, Jordan Strong, who's technically a junior, right? But I mean, Wes, what if Jordan Strong has some huge year? He may look at going pro. Even if not, he's a guy that it's not like he's a freshman. You don't have him around for a super long time. Aaron Sterling's a super senior. Tonka Hemingway's playing inside for you, right? You've got Jordan Birch, who's a sophomore this year, but he has the type of potential to where he might not be at South Carolina for 5 years, just put it that way in total. So, and then you got some youngsters. So it makes sense here to go ahead and get some guys in the pipeline that, can, help out immediately, but also down the road for the Gamecocks at the edge position.
Yeah, well, I think, Chris, it's probably a smart move, like you're saying, because it's one of those spots where there are some positions that are greater needs right now. If you look at the current roster and even, frankly, the talent level at some of the current spots, but you don't want to be looking basically one class later saying, wow, I got to recruit 4 edge guys and pray one of them can play right away. Or I've got to hit the JUCO ranks. I got to go find a guy who can help. And if I don't, we're going to be in bad shape, because then you're actually putting a spot that is in a solid place and making it a potential question mark as well when it's not right now. So yeah, it's probably smart. You and I have said for as long as we've been doing this, you never turn down guys up front if you think they can play. If you can get them in, you think they can play, then you got to take them. And that's the approach South Carolina is taking right now. There are still some question marks at other positions, but it seems like in the case of a guy like Pierce, they're high enough on him that they've probably identified him as a guy of like, we've got to take this guy regardless.
Yeah, and I think that's where they're at. And, a couple other guys obviously on the board. Everybody knows about Jay Sean Barham from, up in that DMV area. He's a priority. He will remain a priority, and a little bit of a different type of player, than James Pierce. But a couple other guys on the board that South Carolina, continues to recruit there in addition to Pierce. And from what it sounds like, Wes, if they can get them all, you bring them and you figure it out, later. And those things tend to work themselves out one way or another. But like you said, line of scrimmage, deal. I mean, you've got to be good up front to have a chance, particularly defensively. South Carolina's got a chance to be pretty good on the defensive line this year, but looking into the future, it's obviously a position where you've got to continue to be really, really good, and that comes through recruiting.
All right, Chris, like I said, let's now go back to some of the younger guys. Again, you look at let's stick with the big uglies, the offensive line on that side of the ball. You had your 3 basically future signees, your 3 verbal commits from the current class. But then, man, getting a kid like Cam Pringle in, getting Josiah Thompson in, then on the defensive line, Xavier McLeod comes in, Heaven Brown Schuler, who is probably, I think it's already pretty clear, he's going to be a national level type prospect. Just getting those guys in, and I'll reiterate it again. You look in the case of Josiah Thompson, he did, and he's the Dillon offensive lineman class of 2024. For those not familiar, he did an early June, just sort of walk-through type visit. He did the O-line, D-line camp, and now was back for a laid-back visit. Zay McLeod, he did a same deal. He did like a tour, little quick type visit, He did O-line, D-line, working with Jimmy Lindsey, and now he was back. Cam Pringle was in actually for a regular camp, but worked out with Greg Atkins there, and now he's back. And I can't remember if he did. Do you remember if Cam did 2? I think he did 1 visit during the summer and now was back for the cookout. I know we obviously saw him in at least 1 camp. So of those guys, Chris, and then Heaven Brown Schuler, that might have been 3 for him as well. I know he's been back and forth in Columbia. I don't know how many times he was on campus versus not on campus. He's got family in Columbia, but he's been in town. We'll say that, and certainly has been on campus at least twice now, maybe more than that. I think that's invaluable. And Chris, the early returns from all those guys has been really positive. I think I would say Xavier McLeod, I feel outstanding about where South Carolina is from their perspective. Josiah Thompson, feel really good about where they are with him. With Brown Schuler, that's going to be such a battle that it's going to be hard to project, but I feel comfortable saying they're in it. And, in Cam Pringle, Chris, I think I said on the show the other day, I've heard South Carolina's in solid shape there early on. I also think that's going to be a real battle as well, just because I think Cam's going to be way up there in the rankings as well. But if you look at those 4 guys, you're giving yourself a shot. So it's just different. Let's take, for example, this class, man, like a Jalen Sneed or a Jaden Lucas, some in-state guys who are big-time prospects that never really visited to give the staff an opportunity. There's a stark contrast when you look at those guys.
Yeah, there is. And that's why, one thing that we've said on the show before and on GamecockCentral.com, this 22 class, is it the first real class for Shane Beamer in that whole era? Because the 21 one was so quick, so patchwork. Yeah, it is. But given that this is a new staff, new head coach, first time all recruiting together, you still don't have that much time with that timeline and the fact that there's COVID that shut down recruiting for a lot of the early tenure of Shane Beamer for several months. You don't have time to lay that groundwork. Even with the 2022 class, you're working on a really accelerated time frame. So 23 and 24, that's when you have a longer runway to try to build these relationships with these kids. And so the ones that South Carolina have had on campus now, the Cookout was a smaller group. Almost all of the guys who were underclassmen that made it in have been on campus already. I think the only one off the top of my head, Wes, that I can think of was the 2024 DB from Alabama, Jaden Coleman. This is his first visit. I think everybody else had already been on campus at least once, as you said. The ones you pointed out, Marquis Anderson, I confirm, Wes, did make it in from Dorman. So that was another one who's been on campus. Ike Daniels, the 2023 running back, Troy Ford, linebacker from 2023 class out of Georgia, Jack Larson from the 24 class, tight end out of Charlotte. All those guys camped last month. They've all been on campus. So they're getting a different feel. They're back for, 2 times in as many months. It's a big positive. And so particularly for those in-state guys, Wes, that you mentioned, Josiah Thompson, Cam Pringle, Marquis Anderson, South Carolina now has an ability where they've now gotten them on campus under this new staff. And you contrast that to the 2 examples you used that were great. Jalen Sneed from Hilton Head, committed to Notre Dame now, Jaden Lucas to Clemson from Malden. Those guys had been on campus under the previous staff, but not under the new staff. When they took over, they were behind, just to be honest. And the kids, they were so advanced in their recruitment that for a variety of reasons did not come back. So that it was an unfortunate deal, but it is what it is. Now with this 23, 24 class, they've gotten in on the ground floor of these in-state guys in particular, and many out-of-state guys in those classes too. And I think it's paid early dividends.
Yeah, you mentioned Jack Larson. He's another man. Was at camp. Then his team actually, was at the team camp as well. So then you're looking at 3 visits for him. I talked to him as well. We'll have a full story with him here soon. And, Chris, I'm glad you brought up Ike Daniels because I want to go into him a bit. It's a kid out of Virginia, Stafford, Virginia, Mountain View High School. I'm going to throw the film up here momentarily. And, Chris, I think part of our job, if we're doing our job well, is to find the crossing point from when South Carolina really likes a kid and the kid really likes South Carolina. Because if you don't have both of those elements, us predicting, South Carolina's in good shape with this guy, doesn't really matter. If South Carolina loves the kid and he's not really feeling South Carolina, then he's not going to end up at South Carolina. If it's reversed, if the kid really likes South Carolina, but he's not a priority for Carolina, then he's probably not going to end up at South Carolina. So we're always on the lookout for where's that cross section? Like where's the intersection between, where's the mutual interest? So I very quickly have begun to believe that Ike Daniels is at that intersection. Now, it is still early in the process for him. He is a class of 2023 kid, but was in June for camp, blew away the staff with his camp for performance from what I was told. Chris was back for the cookout and actually told me he already has it on the books to be in town September 4th. Will be at the opener, is planning to be there. That's some real interest and already is planning to take an official visit to South Carolina. So I think that Ike Daniels is not someone we've really gone into much depth about prior to last week or so. But Ike Daniels is a prospect that I think South Carolina fans officially need to be tracking.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, one thing to look at and give credit where credit is due is, former running backs coach Des Kitchings, kind of laid some of the groundwork up there in Virginia on Daniels and kind of had the interest peaked a little bit. Obviously, Des leaves for the Atlanta Falcons, gets a great opportunity there. Montario Hardesty, when he came in, reassesses the running back board as well. And that's a common guy. And there were several across the 22, 23, 24 classes. But that was one in which there was common, South Carolina new staff likes him or Hardesty likes him. And Daniel's obviously interested enough, comes in June, like you said, Wes, and now back for another visit. And he'll be back several more times, it appears. So major crossover, like you were talking about earlier, that intersection with the mutual interest. And I think we both independently heard some really good returns on how the visit went. Families seem to love it with Ike Daniels. So this is a guy that is certainly going to be one that we're going to be tracking going forward. And it looks like we're going to be tracking him for quite a while, Wes.
No doubt, man. I've got the film up for those who are watching the video versions on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. That's youtube.com/GamecockCentral. Twitter is at Gamecock Central. Facebook is /Gamecock Central. Chris, what are your thoughts on the film, man? I mean, the kid runs hard. They spread him out some. He can play some receiver a little bit as well. I think. What are your early thoughts? I think he's 200 pounds, low center of gravity, difficult to tackle. Lot to like about this film.
Yeah, I think you look at the fact that he can make people miss in a variety of ways. Right at the line, does a really good job using his vision, can put his foot in the ground, and has that really good burst that you look for at the line to get out into open space. Then at the high school level, he can break some tackles. That's more of a challenge in college. Obviously, Wes, when you're going up against guys that are normally like you, at least on the same playing field as you from a physical standpoint. But what you always want to see in a running back in high school is, can they make people miss in high school, either by running around them, running through them? Because if you can't in high school, your chances of doing it in college are not very great. So Daniel shows that ability on film. He's got good speed. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. Like you said, low center of gravity. So he's got pretty good balance when he runs. And I agree, lots of traits to like here about Ike Daniels.
Stan asks and says, I thought he committed to Virginia Tech. I think you're probably thinking of Ramon Brown, Stan. He's committed to them for class of 2022. And this kid is class of 2023 that, like Chris said, got an offer from Des Kitchings, but It seems like his recruitment as far as South Carolina is concerned has started to take off a bit here lately, and is one that will be certainly tracking moving forward. Another interesting offer, Chris, that I want to talk about was a new 2022 offer to linebacker Deuce Spurlock, an Alabama kid, Huntsville, Alabama. And, man, I don't know about you, Chris, but at this point in the process, when a new offer goes out, I take notice, because I think early on, there's just offer after offer after offer, and schools are sort of trying to figure out what their board is. An early offer, I'm not saying it means nothing, but it just doesn't mean as much. If you're extending an offer now, it means you're still trying to find numbers at that particular position, and it means a guy has sort of started to rise up recruiting boards a lot of times. So Deuce Spurlock, Madison Academy High School, South Carolina offered him on Sunday. And Chris, a little bit of a unique connection here. One of his good friends actually played linebacker at Western Kentucky for Clayton White. And so Spurlock, when I talked to him on Sunday, he's like, I'm actually a Western Kentucky fan, which not many recruits have ever said that to me, to be completely honest. And I was going, well, tell me more about that. And he said, well, my buddy plays there, and my buddy played directly for Clayton White. So Spurlock has had a little bit of a unique view of, what Clayton White's defenses actually are. At the time, he didn't realize he was going to have a chance to play for him. But, depending on how some things play out at the linebacker spot in this class, I left my conversation with Spurlock thinking South Carolina is going to have a legitimate chance for this kid if he ends up being one that they push for.
Yeah, and the best friend you're talking about, Will Ignont, who's former Tennessee linebacker. He was a pretty big recruit out of high school. I think he was a higher 4-star guy, transferred from Tennessee to Western Kentucky. And so, yeah, interesting connection there with Clayton White having coached him. And so, obviously, you would think a good word put in there for Clayton White. And like you said, attention-getting offer for several reasons. The primary ones being this isn't a kind of a random out-of-state 2024 offer. This is a senior, so he's in this class. There's a little more urgency to it. And linebacker for the Gamecocks, one of the positions that's more unsettled in this class. There's still some prospects of guys to get when you look at Stone Blanton, Tyler Banks from Virginia. But now Deuce Spurlock with this offer and the connections there and the interest that he now has in the program, he's now one to watch, one that you can kind of put in that pod of guys that will eventually be on campus or be back on campus, in the case of like a Blanton who's already been to South Carolina. And so, yeah, one to watch, interesting offer, intriguing offer to see kind of where it goes from here.
And those who are watching the video right now, I'm going to leave this film up, but I'm going to talk about linebackers in general. I don't have a feel for it yet, man. I think to me it was interesting and probably not a positive that Tyler Banks never made it in the summer. Now, if they get him in early during the fall and he gets down for a game, then, nobody cares that he didn't visit during the summer. But this is a name, I remember us bringing him up and tracking him back in the spring, and it was always sort of mentioned he's going to visit at some point. First, it was, maybe for a camp. Then it was, maybe for the cookout. And I don't know what the kid's situation is. I'm not going to pretend I do, but generally, if we're going to talk about how much of a positive it is to get some of these kids on campus 2-3 times, they like you've said, they made his top group sight unseen. So there has to be some level of interest, but also when a guy just doesn't make it down, I tend to maybe say, until you get him in, you don't really have much of a chance.
Yeah. And that's the thing, I remember our last report on Banks was that he was looking at 2 schools to possibly visit during that last open week in the month of July. And those 2 schools were Ole Miss and South Carolina. It was a couple of schools that he hadn't seen that he's been interested in. Well, didn't make it to South Carolina, and he ended up visiting Ole Miss this past week. And so you kind of go, why? And Banks is one that he didn't talk a ton to the media either. but we have, been able to get some information there. And I don't really know the specific reason, but like you said, it's not like he's completely uninterested. They made the top 7 sight unseen, but at some point, Wes, you do have to get a guy in on a visit. So will that happen? I don't know. Obviously, with the lengthy, dead period this month in August, there won't be an opportunity then, but there will be plenty of opportunity in September, whether it's a coach, going out on the road to check out one of his games, scout, or more importantly, even than that, getting him actually on campus. So we'll see where it goes, but he is still someone that, as far as I'm concerned, I think we're still tracking Wes, but someone that they do need to get on campus to see, where it could go.
Yeah, and I'm not one of these people that reads into new offers. It's a common trend. We see it all the time. Like if South Carolina were to offer a receiver today, everybody would be like, what does that mean? Something for Antonio? Does that mean something for Jaden Gibson? What does it mean? I don't read into that most of the time. And I won't read into a specific guy with this, but I do think this is South Carolina saying, yeah, we need to make sure we can fill our spots with quality players at the linebacker position. Because you look right now, Donovan Westmoreland is listed as a linebacker on most sites, but what was brought in by South Carolina really is more of an edge guy. So, Nick Emanwori is actually listed as a DB, but is probably your one guy in the class right now that you would circle and say he's a linebacker. He's a future linebacker. They wanted our Mason Thomas. I think that one stung a little bit for him to go to Iowa State. So we'll see what that position looks like moving forward, and then we'll go from there. But I will say this, man, I like how productive he is. Watching the film, he's been a productive receiver as well in this offense, and seems to move around, is comfortable playing in space. Looks like a solid prospect to me, Chris.
Yeah, he does. I mean, I think he's someone that can continue to get bigger, but you look at how he moves around, how he can play in space. That's something that you need. That's a trait that you need in this game. And so his ability to run and, like I said, play in space, those are positive traits when it comes to linebacker. And so it's going to be interesting, Wes, to see, just to take it back to kind of a general point, how this linebacker class finishes out, because it's really hard to predict right now. I think there are a lot of different situations with, you look at, Deuce Spurlock, okay, you figure they probably get him on campus, but kind of where do things go from there? Stone Blank, he's a guy that you've had in for an official. He's going to come back for a game this year, but he's a Mississippi kid. He's committed to Mississippi State for baseball. Can you get Tyler Banks in? Are there any new guys that pop up this football season that South Carolina's been tracking? Maybe so. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch, but a lot still to determine at the linebacker position, but it's still definitely a big need in this class.
No doubt, man. All right, so we have not done this before, but we're going to do something a little bit different right now, Chris. We're going to try this. We're going to pay a couple of bills. So real quick, some of you may see an ad pop up right now. Others may not. But we'll be right back at our midway point here on GC Live. All right, we're back, completing the show here on GC Live. There you see right there our kickoff party coming up Friday, August 20th, 7 p.m. Still hands. This is the 2021, hopefully first of many, Chris, 2021 Gamecock Central kickoff party at Stillhand Brewing. I hope everybody here will be there. I know I'll be there. I know Chris will be there. I hope everybody in the chat and everybody listening, everybody watching comes out as well. And I do want to say real quick, Chris, we got to thank our sponsors, man, because we've already got several folks in. The fine people at Experience Columbia Sports, ExperienceColumbiaSC.com is where you can find them. Chris, Lawyer Lisa, that's a name I think a lot of South Carolina fans are already familiar with. They do quite a bit on 107.5 from what I've heard. I know Josh Brown has been on 107.5 promoting Lawyer Lisa as well. So do you want to tell everybody real quick, Chris, about Lawyer Lisa and about our hotel deal that we have with 3 local hotels? And just bear with us, y'all, because this event literally would not be possible without these sponsors. So I know some people get up in arms about, if we overwhelm them with advertisements and stuff. But all local sponsors, they're helping us out, and we literally would not be able to have the party financially without them. So bear with us, and please, if you can, support our sponsors.
Yeah, and there will be VIP tickets on sale. T. Thompson asked when they go on sale. Hopefully this week, hopefully very early this week, T. But as you pointed out, Wes, this is, if you don't get a VIP ticket, it's still a free event, and it's for all Gamecocks, right? So you can come to the event free. There's no entry fee, no cover. You purchase your own drinks, whatever, but it's free, and it's going to have a concert. It's going to be great. So please support these folks. I'm going to drop the link for 3 different hotels, Marriott properties around Columbia. If you need a hotel for the event, or if you just need a hotel in general, special discount codes for all those 3 properties. I'll drop them here in the chat in just a moment. Definitely check out Experience Columbia, as Wes said, and Lawyer Lisa, our friends over there. They do an awesome job. They are a law firm that focuses on estate planning. So if anybody's ever gone through some of that, maybe you lose a loved one, maybe you're trying to figure out what to do with a family member's estate, it can be extremely stressful and extremely confusing. So make sure you check out Lawyer Lisa and experience the difference there with them. Go to lawyerlisa.com. They're on Fernandina Road in Columbia, and they are one of several sponsors that are helping make the preseason kickoff party at Steel Hands possible. So please check out those local businesses and support them.
Yeah, and please come on out for the party. Like I said, VIP, and I know people. I see Craig asking. People keep asking about the price. I mean, are we safe to say the price at this point, Chris? The reason we have not said the price is that we have been trying to see how much value we can pack into the VIP thing, and because we've been trying to get, we've tried to work it out with several people. We're going to have opportunities for giveaways, and the way it's going to work, if you, in theory, and I believe this is the way we're headed, if you have a VIP ticket, you're going to automatically be entered into our giveaways as well. If you're not a VIP, you can then buy basically one of those lottery type tickets where we're going to pull from, and we're working with sponsors to have gifts, and we're working to figure out exactly what all is going to come with the VIP ticket. So, Chris?
Yeah, I think we should do it. Let's break some news on the show.
I mean, everybody's been asking for a long time what the price of the tickets is going to be. So, all right, what we're looking at right now is it's $100 for a VIP ticket. That gets you, obviously, access to the event, which is free in the first place. There's going to be a special covered seating area, which puts you out of the Columbia sun, puts you in front of a fan. You're going to have your food is going to be included with the ticket. You're going to have, and this is why we were sort of hesitant. I've got to confirm with Steel Hands how many drinks come with that, but you will have a certain number of drinks that are included with your ticket. A guaranteed place to sit, which actually for this venue-wise, I think there's going to be a lot of people there. That's going to matter to have a guaranteed spot to sit. We're going to give you some free time on Gamecock Central. And Chris and I are going to be hanging out, walking around in the VIP area as well. So we're going to be walking around, chatting it up with y'all, talking some ball with you. And really the only way, the way we wanted to be able to keep this event free was A, to have sponsors, but B, to do a more premium area with tickets as well. So did I describe that well, Chris?
You did, man. And I think, truth be told, I don't know really what different people are going to expect different things with the VIP ticket. There might be some people that said, I'm not going to buy it no matter what, which is fine. There might be some people say, if it's this, I'll buy it, or this is my limit. We understand that. But we are trying to, as Wes said, we're trying to already, we feel like we've packed a good bit of value in there already. You will get some things included that you would be paying for otherwise, probably, if you come to the party. So build that into your thought process. And we're trying to pack in even more value. We got a bunch of things locked in that you will get, but we're going to continue trying to add to that. We're hopefully not done on that front, trying to pack in value to the VIP tickets. Wes and I will be there a lot. This is a party for all Gamecocks. We're going to make the rounds as much as we possibly can. We're obviously going to be, I think we're going to be running around a little bit, Wes, probably on that day, but we will certainly be hanging out in the VIP area a good bit. So if I might have just turned some people off from it, Wes. My bad. Nah, that sounds worse even, but we will be there if that has any effect on it. So continue to keep a lookout for VIP tickets. We'll definitely be, we'll be dropping links all over the place once we get that. Yeah.
We're going to hit you over the head with that info, I think. But, and that's part of the reason we've been trying to figure out how many VIP tickets we're going to have. And we've been trying to find as much value to pack in there for you to where it is, a good deal for you. But that's what we settled on as far as the way to structure everything. From a company standpoint, I've learned a lot about throwing an event. And I've also learned it's not cheap to throw a concert. So yeah, if you also remember that if you buy a VIP ticket, you're supporting what we're doing there. But if you don't want to buy a VIP ticket, you can come for free. Nobody's forcing anybody to pay. And we wanted to keep it to where you didn't have to pay to come. If you are a heavy drinker, if you're a big partier, I forgot one big advantage, Chris. VIP has its own bar. So much shorter lines in the VIP area. Just saying, if that's what you're all about. That could be a big advantage to some people, Chris.
It's a good point. So there are several people out there that went, okay, now I'm sold. Yeah.
I may be one of those people if trying to pull this thing off. Like I may be one of those people come 18 days from now. So we shall see. I think I can go ahead and put this out there as well. 107.5, the game, they'll be out there before the party. I'm sure they'll have some prizes of their own. They're inviting everyone to come out pregame, meet them. We'll be hanging around for part of that time. We're going to have special guests speaking. So basically the rundown is that about 7, we're going to have some different guests talk. We're going to have some former players talk. And then the main event will be Patrick Davis and his band. But we're going to have some other elements involved as well. And the big thing is just for everybody to come out and have a really good time. All right, Chris, let's talk a little bit of football, man. Players report Thursday. If y'all are into reading a lot of Gamecock content, you're going to see it on Thursday. Media day, Beamer's speaking, some coaches are speaking, players are speaking. And then on Friday, we're going to have a little bit of practice that's going to be open out there, Chris. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you, man, give me one storyline, one thing. It can be a player, it can be a position, it can be a storyline, it can be anything. What are you most, when you look out there on Friday, what are you most interested in seeing?
I would go with on the offensive side of the ball, and I'll keep it very general and just say the offense, because I think, defensively and offensively, there are questions about, what are things going to look like schematically? We really didn't get a great sense of that in the spring, particularly on offense. I mean, the spring game was the most that we saw, whether media fans, that was the most that we saw in one sitting of South Carolina football the entire spring. But it was very vanilla on purpose, for a couple reasons. And so I think just offensively, looking at the scheme, kind of looking at how all the parts work together, being able to get a sense as much as you can in whatever time span we get, Wes, which won't be a ton, just being able to get a sense for what things look like, whether that's personnel. Hey, who's out there first at receiver or second at receiver, or any guys stepping up? Are there any plays made? And just kind of looking at how the offense is structured from a scheme standpoint, because we know there's a lot in this playbook. So what do they show, if anything? That for me is the biggest storyline, just because it's interesting, and as we all know from following this program the past few years, the offensive side of the ball is one that's generated a lot of conversation and an area they got to improve in.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And I'm with you. I would love to have exclusive access to just one scrimmage to see what this offense is going to be. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe we can pull some strings, but I mean, I feel like we may get glimpses, but we're not really going to know what this offense is until they kick it off. And then I think September 4th, we're not really going to know, because if you're, from a South Carolina perspective, you're hoping you can sort of just impart your will and your talent's going to win this game without showing a ton.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know. You can't assume anything. So we'll see. I'll go on the other side of the ball for the sake of argument. And Chris, I'll be curious to see the first 5 guys in the secondary that run out there day one.
Yep.
And where they are, where are they lined up?
Yeah.
Clayton White, who is generally a pretty positive guy, but also I think a realistic guy when he talks. He was asked after the golf tournament, biggest positive, like non-concern, and then biggest concern. And he went very general with the positive. He said, "Look, I feel like our guys are ready." He says, "I feel like my guys know this scheme. They've studied it hard. They know the playbook. They're ready to go out there and execute it." But then when he was talking about biggest concern, he brought up the secondary, which is in line with what I think everybody outside the building thinks too. But his point was just, I've got so many underclassmen. I've got so many guys that have not played. And it's a very valid concern. We're sitting here talking about the first 5. Well, who's the 6th guy? Who's the 7th? Who's the 8th? Who is next in line? We know there will be injuries, and it's kind of interesting, man. The first group, you're going to have a bunch of guys who have maybe played, but fans probably put them as question marks in some cases. You're going to have some new guys who are older. They're not underclassmen, but like a Carlin Splittell, he has 1 year to play. If he's probably going to play a pretty good bit this year for South Carolina. But then, where's Dom Hill as far as his progression? He was a guy who was in there with the first unit in the spring game. How far along is O.D. Fortune? Has Joey Hunter, who was banged up in the spring, has he been able to get healthy and get at least some time in the player run practices? There's at least enough guys in the room now, I think, as far as numbers. But who surprises? Who steps up that we're not expecting? Who's not ready that we're counting on? Thinking South Carolina's going to play that guy a lot. I feel like there could be, somebody asked us to project the secondary, I think, a couple weeks ago. We could have nailed that, or we could be completely off, right?
Yeah, total whiff.
Yeah.
Well, and some of the stuff coming out from the media golf tournament really made it sound like, hey, Karan Prunty, the transfer from Kansas, Karan Prunty and Cam, have a chance to be a good duo. And so you take that and you're like, okay, well, Karan Prunty trotting out there day one as the starter, just, here we are. He didn't go through spring. He enrolled in the summer. First time in a Gamecock uniform. Is he out there on day one as a starter? I don't know. But what that does tell you is that there's an expectation that very well could happen. And I think even outside the building, that's an expectation just because it's so unsettled. And we know Karan Prunty has, some experience, some valuable and impactful experience. And so that makes sense. But there are a lot of other guys. I mean, look, Jalen Dickerson. I mean, he's been around for a long time, but because of injuries, some just odd, injuries, he just hasn't played a ton. I mean, he's probably midway through his sophomore year in terms of actual on-field experience, but yet he's much older in terms of age and more mature. So, how healthy can they stay? Where do the pieces fit? Who's your nickel? I mean, there are just a lot of different pieces. So I think that's definitely one of the top two and could arguably be the top kind of storyline to open camp.
No doubt. I see. We had a couple questions, Chris, I want to hit. Nathan, is E.J. Jenkins going to play more at wide receiver or tight end? It seems like more tight end to me. That's where he played a ton of in the spring. I think when you're going to see him sort of flexed out or playing what would look like a receiver position, and sometimes we're talking about semantics. He seems to be in the tight end room more, but now that tight end spot, Chris, does get flexed out into the slot quite a bit. I would guess maybe some goal line situations, you put him out there on the edge. I mean, I think Beamer even brought that up. He's like, in a goal line situation, are we better off with E.J. Jenkins down here blocking somebody or spread out, throwing him the football, trying to find a mismatch? So, I think he'll line up at receiver down there some. But for the most part, it seems like he's going to be a tight end to me. Let's see. We had another question. Grover says, I'm no evaluation expert, but Spalding, referring to David Spalding, looks like he's going to be a great player for us sooner rather than later. Am I crazy? Chris, I don't think he's crazy. I don't know if I've seen enough of Spalding to really say one way or the other, but it did catch my eye that he was out there first among the nickels in the spring game.
Yeah. I mean, that does say something. Now, other side to that, I wouldn't even call it devil's advocate, but South Carolina pretty banged up in the spring with some little nicks in the secondary.
No
So
doubt.
not sure you can take a ton away from that, but it was, he did have an opportunity there and did some good things. And I don't know if I'm always hesitant to use the word great player. To me, that's kind of all SEC NFL draft pick. Like you, Wes, I haven't seen enough. We don't know enough quite yet. A guy with potential for sure, and potential to play a good bit for South Carolina this year. Sure. Potential to play very well if he gets that chance. I think that's there. But I think still a good bit to learn, about David Spalding. Did stay healthy during the spring as far as we know. Was in there at the spring game. Got some valuable experience in this scheme as a first-year player in the scheme. And we'll see where it goes from there. But he's definitely going to be one of the guys, I think, in the mix.
All right, man. It's 3:00, so I think that's going to do it. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show. I had fun. I think we had a lot to hit on. I planned on continuing to maybe do some position breakdowns, but we end up having so much to talk about that we don't get to them. So hopefully next time, probably Wednesday, we can get into the defensive side of the ball, maybe break down the South Carolina defensive line. But until then, he is Chris. I'm Wes. Appreciate y'all watching, listening. And again, please support our Gamecock Central kickoff party sponsors, and y'all have a good rest of the day.